Perfection. I believe that this is a road that everyone has tried following a couple times. Some want to have a perfect form, some want to live perfect, and some want to perfect their abilities, or well, master would be the correct term, I guess. The strive for perfection is a common one, and it's so common that we see it a lot in fiction. There have been so many characters that have strived for perfection, and some were created to be perfect. I have a couple of examples of these perfect or ultimate life forms and how it worked, and their effect on the franchise of where they were in. So let's go about this. In Dragon Ball Z, we have the creation of Dr. Gero, Cell. Cell was this being designed to be the perfect warrior, possessing the genetics and special abilities of some of the strongest fighters to ever touch the earth. Possessing these genetics have given him the accessibility for many things that only work for a specific species. He's able to regenerate, breathe in space, and has access to Zenkai boosts. Cell, once he became whole, was one thing, but the road to said perfection was a journey that had gone for a couple of years in Z. That's just speaking on his own personal journey and not the planning of Gero, which that is much larger. Though the thing with Perfect Cell is that he was made to be stronger off of scaling alone, but Gohan being the secret weapon that was above Cell is what finished it all. It had shown that something artificially made cannot be on par with the originals, or well, artificially made to destroy the originals cannot defeat the originals. By that I mean, Cell had a certain cap, and Gohan's cap was just much higher. Now, in terms of potential, I'm not sure. Maybe Cell could have trained to be stronger than everyone there since he had access to Zenkai boost. That's not up for me to debate. My thoughts are around the narrative, and of course the villain is going to win. The thing is, Cell believed he was as high as could be, and a lot of people did too. Well, that was until he was beaten twice, I'd say. The next character I have here is Doomsday. Now, while there's two separate iterations of him with different histories, they both end up with his origins being in the lab. So we'll have a case somewhat like Cell. Doomsday was created and grew throughout being cloned and killed repetitively as an infant, with each death being even more harsh than the last. All of those deaths by dangerous beings or conditions of the universe led to Doomsday being extremely durable, some say invulnerable with what he's gone against, and I don't exactly keep up with Doomsday at this moment in specific, but so far through his history he's still continuously defeated, even when he's taken these large wins against strong DC characters. But at the same time, some of the ones that mention that he does beat also beat him. And it's just extremely odd with how it's set up, but Doomsday is not this undefeatable, invulnerable piece of destruction because he's still able to be defeated. No matter how much is thrown at him, he's still able to be defeated even if he comes back from all of it. It's crazy. And the next character, Kars. Kars is an ancient being who longed for the ability to live under the sun. He found the power to do so with the Red Stone of Asia, and it transformed him into the ultimate life form that he was, or into ultimate life form Kars, or well, ultimate Kars. Ultimate Kars had access to regeneration, transformation into anything that's ever lived on Earth, doesn't grow old, there's a lot he can do. I'll be putting his stat page up, and there's also 2 videos where I go over the strength of Ultimate Kars, and 1 video of regular Kars if you guys do want to go about that. Kars had become one of the strongest beings to touch the earth in JoJo, yet he was still beat. The thing with battle tendency here, it was meant to show that no one is immortal, no one is unbeatable, and sometimes not everything is what it seems, and also every cocky person possible gets guapped. I have a separate video going on that too. The defeat of Kars didn't lay in him being defeated, but by him being ultimate. This is a common thing you'll see when someone gets ahead of themselves once they believe that they have an advantage against their opposition. And plus, the thing that made him ultimate was what caused him to die but not die. It's extremely poetic in terms of irony. And last, Mewtwo. The product of repetitive gene splicing and the dream of creating the most powerful Pokemon, Mewtwo stood tall in the realm of Pokemon. The first Pokemon movie shows a great portrayal of Mewtwo, but the thing is, we don't have any of that in-game, where it's held canon. And along with that, even how Mewtwo came to be in the movie is just nowhere near how it worked in the game too. Apparently, Mewtwo was originally a baby Mew because Mew got pregnant. It's a huge thing, you can look it up. But Mewtwo's story was more circulated on being towards the ultimate Pokemon, but never asking for any of it. To be captivated and continuously experimented on, was nothing that Mewtwo had ever asked for. When it came to the villains who go on the path of perfection, they almost are never finished or how they wanted. With Mewtwo, it could have been that he could have been made stronger than he already is, but he never wanted to be made into this ultimate being. It wanted to live like other Pokemon, so it left, and it did. I feel like this is a common thing we see with characters that are ridiculously strong, but it's not something that they strive to attain. It's more on power being given to them against their will, and having that much power makes you this huge target, something to be controlled and used for reasons that aren't your own. With great power comes great responsibility, but if you never wanted that power to begin with, then it's just a huge burden. Now, with showing you these examples, what do we do with it? Well, you realize one thing, that the perfect life form, it doesn't exist. And it can't. Having an ultimate life form in your franchise is purely done to show a point on how you should be viewing a situation like that, or how you should be viewing yourself. You can take apart each character that we had mentioned here, and even include other characters that are considered ultimate life forms, and notice what they did was to establish a learning point in the plot for not only those that they're against, but the viewer. Now, obviously, this would happen since the majority of ultimate life forms we see in fiction are villains in the story, but it's something that these stories want to get into to show their take on a belief that the perfect life form makes relevant. On why it can't exist, you have to think about being perfect without involving the concept of otherworldly beings like gods, which even then still aren't perfect. There hasn't been a thing to be 100%. To be perfect in everything contradicts in multiple areas. It's just not possible. If it's meant to be perfect in terms of a shonen character, for example, strength, speed, durability, stamina, abilities, all of those attributes being as high as they could be, who's one to say that that's actually as high as it gets? If a character that's like that introduced into the franchise, there's nowhere to go from that. It's either that your main character beats them and proves that they weren't perfect, or they are actually perfect and they go on this unstoppable spree and then your franchise is over. Perfection is a goal, but mastering is where you'll end up at being in the end of it all. Even then, when you master something, you still can craft it to be better than it was before, depending on what it is. Now, personally, I believe that there's always something that can be made better than it already is, even if it's already mastered and made extremely good. Well, except for a Fruit Punch Powerade. But, you know, everything else, yeah. The characters I mentioned are nowhere near perfect. They're just really strong. They might be constructed of multiple things, and they might had a goal originally to become this perfect thing, but none of them are perfect. None of them are as high as could get. Always the verse of insert character here always shows to grow further than what that character was originally. And that's how it's going to go. It always keeps on moving forward, because you can't have something like a perfect being to stunt the growth of your franchise. If you introduce a perfect being, that's where it stops, because there's no growing after that. But that's why something perfect just can't exist. It would just end up ceasing everything else. So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is just me going about something that I was really interested in. I would always want to talk about perfect life forms, ultimate life forms. It was something that I've always wanted to get into, but this is something that I actually had to sit down with myself and realize, because I was like, oh man, how am I exactly gonna get into this? But this is something that I actually want to do with other types of characters. There's also certain verses I want to do, depending on what it's going to be. It's something not exactly in terms of just directly this character versus this character, but more this type of character versus this type of character, and then I use a bunch of it all. You might see that in the near future. I'll be sure to tell you guys about it, probably in the community tab and all that, and it's just going to be something to get into. Now, I understand that I have a lot of series already. You guys can go comment what videos you guys want me to still continue off of. Maybe there's some certain things in series that I haven't finished yet that I should. I already have a huge list on them, but just anyone can double check on me if they want me to. So that'll be that. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys can hit me up in my media in the description. I have a Discord server where you guys can go put everything you want to. There's also a video ideas tab, or well, the chat, so you guys can go put whatever thoughts you have in there. And I'll be sure to read up on it, because I actually check on there frequently. So I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. I hope you had fun watching. I'll see you guys all in the next one. I'm sorry. Until then, peace out and Godspeed.